One of the strangest questions people ask you is this: what are you doing for your birthday? And when you answer honestly, people don't know what to do with it. You say, nothing, it's just another day. And suddenly the room gets weird. Someone laughs like you're joking. Someone else says, come on, you have to do something. And a third person starts looking at you like you're quietly falling apart inside. Apparently, not wanting to celebrate your birthday is suspicious behavior. But here's the thing most people never stop to consider. Psychologists have actually studied this. And the truth is, people who treat their birthday like a normal day often fall into three very different psychological categories. Some of them are carrying emotional scar tissue. Some of them are simply overwhelmed with life. And some of them might actually be more psychologically independent than the people judging them. So if birthdays have never meant that much to you, this might explain why. First, there's the group most people misunderstand. These are the people who stop celebrating because their brain learned not to expect anything from it. Back in the late 1960s, psychologist Martin Seligman discovered a phenomenon now known as learned helplessness. The idea is simple but unsettling. When someone experiences repeated disappointment they can't control, their brain eventually stops trying to change the outcome. Not because they're weak, because the brain is efficient. Hope costs energy. And if history keeps proving that hope leads to disappointment, the brain eventually decides it's cheaper to stop expecting anything at all. Birthdays are actually a perfect example of this psychological pattern. Think about what a birthday is from the brain's perspective. It's a prediction machine. You expect attention. You expect people to remember. You expect to feel special. But when those expectations fail enough times, something interesting happens inside your brain. Neuroscientists like Wolfram Schultz found that dopamine, the chemical most people associate with pleasure, doesn't actually respond to rewards the way people think. It responds to prediction errors. In other words, your brain releases dopamine when reality turns out better than expected. But if the outcome keeps falling short of what you hoped for, the brain adjusts the prediction. Eventually, it stops expecting the reward at all. So when someone casually says, "It's just another day," that sentence might not be apathy. It might be a nervous system that quietly learned, expect less, it hurts less. In the calm way they say it, that's not coldness, that's emotional armor. But that's not the only explanation. There's another group of people who skip their birthday for a completely different reason. These are the people whose brains are simply too busy to care about it. Psychologists sometimes refer to this phenomenon as time blindness. It shows up in people who are deeply focused, highly distracted, or constantly juggling responsibilities. When your brain is running 10 different priorities at once, days blur together. Deadlines, work, family responsibilities, bills, life. Your birthday becomes just another square on the calendar that slides past while you're dealing with things that actually feel urgent. These people aren't avoiding their birthday. They're not suppressing anything emotional. Their brain simply filed it under not important right now, right next to the dentist appointment they keep rescheduling, and the to-do list that's slowly turning into a novel. For them, the day passes quietly because their mind is occupied with something else. Not sadness, just momentum. And then there's the third group. This one tends to confuse people the most, because these are the individuals who genuinely don't need birthdays to feel meaningful at all. Not because they're lonely, not because they're damaged, but because their sense of value comes from somewhere else. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan spent decades studying what actually drives human motivation. Their research led to something called self-determination theory. And one of the central discoveries was this: people with the highest psychological well-being tend to rely less on external validation. They don't depend on ceremonies, milestones, or social rituals to confirm that they matter. Their sense of identity is more internally anchored, which means something interesting happens. The need for symbolic moments like birthdays becomes optional. Not meaningless, just unnecessary. Meanwhile, a lot of people are stuck on what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill, a concept explored by researchers like Philip Brickman. It's the cycle where people keep chasing the next milestone that promises happiness. The next promotion, the next purchase, the next celebration. And each one gives a brief emotional high before the brain resets and starts chasing the next one. But people who step off that treadmill don't rely on those external spikes anymore. They don't need a designated day each year to feel valued. They already feel okay on a random Tuesday afternoon. And strangely enough, that can make other people uncomfortable, because it challenges the assumption that everyone needs the same forms of validation. But there's one more layer to this, and it's the one people rarely talk about. Some people avoid celebrating their birthday not because they're independent, but because they're protecting themselves. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker studied something called contingencies of self-worth. Her research found that many people tie their self-esteem to specific events, how people treat them, whether they feel recognized, whether others show up for them. And if someone suspects that their birthday might not meet those expectations, they sometimes remove themselves from the situation entirely, not out of confidence, out of protection. Because wanting something and then watching it fall short can confirm fears people already have about themselves. So opting out becomes safer, no expectation, no disappointment, which raises an uncomfortable but important question. If birthdays don't matter that much to you, why? Is it freedom or is it defense? Because those are two very different psychological stories, and only you know which one is yours. But here's the bigger point. Somewhere along the way, society decided that celebrating your birthday was a requirement, that if you don't make a big deal about it, something must be wrong. But human psychology isn't that simple. Some people heal by celebrating, some people heal by letting go of expectations, and some people simply stop needing the ritual entirely. So if your birthday comes and goes like any other day, that doesn't automatically mean you're broken. It might just mean your relationship with validation looks different than everyone else's. And sometimes the most peaceful place to arrive in life is the moment you realize you don't need a calendar to remind you that you matter. If this resonated with you, you're probably not the only one. Quietly tell me in the comments. Do birthdays matter to you, or do they feel like just another day? And if you want more psychology videos like this, subscribe to Alpha Brain Theory, because the next video might explain something about your mind that you've never had words for before.